Welcome to the Explainer. So, let's just dive right into a totally mind-bending paradigm shift regarding the true nature of your very own physical body. I mean, if you think the device you're watching this on right now is advanced, wait until we unpack the profound concepts hidden inside your very own cells. We're going to explore some absolutely fascinating theories from the source material today, proposing that our biology is, well, actually the most sophisticated computer hardware in the universe. The sources suggest that everything we call life in physical form is essentially running a genetic program. And honestly, we're just now barely beginning to understand its operating system. To really set the scale here, the sources indicate your body contains approximately 120 billion miles of DNA material. I want you to just let that sink in for a second. 120 billion miles. If you stretched it all out, it's an almost incomprehensible amount of physical wiring packed straight into the microscopic nucleus of your cells. And astonishingly, this biological hard drive has the capacity to store over 100 trillion times more information than our most advanced human-made technologies. We're talking about an information density that makes our best, most cutting-edge silicon chips look completely primitive by comparison. Yet, the foundational principles? They're remarkably similar. Think about it. Just like a desktop computer uses a binary code of zeros and ones to process data, our DNA relies on a biological binary alphabet made of 4 nitrogenous bases: adenine, guanine, cytosine, and thymine, basically A, G, C, and T. But here's the real secret to its power. In DNA, information density is essentially equated with charge density. The ability of DNA to attract and self-organize electrical charge dictates exactly how much information it can hold. The sequence of those 4 biological letters determines literally everything about your physical traits. It is the code that compiles the software of you. This structure effectively acts as a true biological motherboard for the human body. And to actually prove its viability as a real-world data storage medium, researchers at Harvard successfully encoded an entire 53,400-word book into millions of bits of DNA using a binary conversion. They literally translated a text straight into biological chemicals. It's incredible. Moving on to Section 1, Sacred Geometry, the Architecture of Infinite Storage. So, how exactly do you fold something that massive without losing all the information? Well, the secret lies in the math. A single DNA turn, measuring exactly 34 angstroms long by 20 angstroms wide, aligns perfectly with the golden mean ratio, also known as phi. And the sources suggest this 1.618 ratio isn't just some fun mathematical coincidence. It's the absolute foundational key to how this biological data is compressed. Because of this specific phi ratio, DNA forms a fractal, self-similar shape known in esoteric physics as a ratcheted dodecahedron. And because this geometry is perfectly self-similar, it allows for infinite, non-destructive data compression. It's kind of like folding an endless map perfectly into a tiny envelope, where waves can just nest within other waves without ever interfering with or destroying the underlying data. Let's look at how this actually builds up. DNA physically braids itself to embed context. It goes from a single 5-dimensional thread to a string, to a rope, and finally into a 12-strand fat rope of deeply nested information. This creates a remarkably high signal-to-noise ratio. Because of this built-in context dependency, if a piece of the code gets lost or damaged, the surrounding braided envelopes actually contain enough rich contextual data to instantly replace the error message. But right here is perhaps the most stunning claim from our sources. What actively drives this braiding process? It's coherent human emotion, specifically the emotion of bliss. The heart's electrical rhythms during these peak emotions act as a sonic piezoelectric snake charmer. This acoustic wave literally entrains and physically weaves the genetic material tighter and tighter, which means essentially your emotions are actively programming your geometric structure. Which brings us to Section 2, Redefining Junk DNA, the Cosmic Antenna. You know, mainstream science often dismisses about 95 to 97% of our genetic material as just non-coding junk. But alternative researchers hypothesize that these epigenes actually serve as a highly complex wireless antenna system. Under this framework, this immense, largely ignored portion of our DNA functions as a massive broadcast transmitter and receiver. Some sources even propose that this non-coding material might actually contain off-world extraterrestrial code planted there by higher intelligence. Following this line of thought, our junk DNA connects our brain computers directly to a cosmos-wide web. Just like your laptop picks up unseen Wi-Fi signals in your living room and decodes them into a website on your screen, our genetic structure is supposedly constantly downloading unseen frequencies from the universe. It then decodes them into the collective 3D hologram that we all perceive as reality. Next up is Section 3, Memory Banks, Ancestral and Experiential. Now, if we're continuously downloading data from this holographic internet, what kind of information is actually stored in our deep biological archives? Well, our epigenes essentially serve as an environmental toggle switch. They're this incredibly complex chemical soup carrying the immense weight of ancestral memories and deeply ingrained historical trauma. And these aren't just abstract ideas. They are physical files saved on your biological computer that can turn functional genes on or off, entirely depending on the environmental signals you encounter today. The source material even suggests this DNA storage provides a framework for some highly controversial phenomena. For instance, it offers a mechanism for why some people possess physical scars or birthmarks that perfectly match traumatic events from claimed past lives. And because every single cell contains a holographic version of the whole, it might explain why organ transplant recipients sometimes suddenly manifest the distinct personality traits and aptitudes of their donors. The organ isn't just physical tissue. It's a piece of hardware containing the donor's downloaded software. All right, let's move to Section 4, the shape-shifting magworm, reprogramming our code. If our physical form is simply hardware running a downloaded genetic program, the ultimate revelation here is that this code is not set in stone. It's described as a shape-shifting magworm, and theoretically, it can be rewritten. Leading-edge Russian biophysics research, specifically the work of Pyotr Garjayev, proposes that DNA can actually be reprogrammed using specific language, intention, and radio waves writing on coherent laser light straight into the epigenes. By transmitting new acoustic patterns, they suggest you can literally rewrite the genetic software, repairing defects and fundamentally altering the biological instructions. Through a process they call superlooping, our body computer constantly assesses its environment and uses fractal heart rate variability, our coherent emotions, to make permanent structural modifications. In this view, biological evolution itself is framed as a continuous feedback loop. It's a real-time download where the way you feel physically alters the geometry of the information stored inside you. At a peak limit condition of what's called ensoulment, extreme bliss braids the DNA so perfectly it forms a toroidal ring, basically a donut shape. Esoteric physics sources hypothesize that this specific, optimized geometry allows our biological consciousness, or biological magnetism, to accelerate right past the speed of light. This effectively allows the stored data of you to become sustainable even beyond physical death. This esoteric physics suggests something incredibly profound, that our most coherent, loving emotions aren't just fleeting, temporary feelings. They literally write the genetic code and structure reality itself. Why? Because only that perfectly coherent frequency of love can fold the geometry tightly enough without destroying the data. So, I want to leave you with this provocative final thought. If your physical body is essentially just programmable hardware, and every single emotion you feel is actively braiding and writing the code of your reality, who is ultimately at the keyboard? You have absolutely limitless potential right there inside your cells. Thank you so much for joining this explainer, and keep exploring.